This is Hotfix, where I'll be offering possible solutions to improving narrative in video games instead of, just grumpily nagging about it. For the purpose of this experiment, we will concern ourselves mostly with the aspect of narrative that refers to the tools used in the act of telling a story, not the story itself. In the medium of video games, these tools can include everything from sound design and music to environment and character design, cutscenes, dialogues, item descriptions, menus, level design, and everything in between. Every single thing within a game helps to tell its story, everything connected through the single thread of interactivity. Interactivity, the greatest asset of our medium. The unbound ability to immerse oneself in a different world, to live a different life. The ability for artists to connect directly with their audience, and for the audience to express itself through a piece of art. I've spoken before about how narrative in video games is largely relegated to cutscenes, that they make games like they're shooting movies, that if we want our medium to grow its ability to tell stories, any kind of story, then we, the players, must learn to appreciate, expect, and demand that developers expand their narrative tool belt to include all of the assets that are available to them. This isn't a movie, this is a video game, and I don't want to watch the story, I want to play it. And remember, every single game's got a story to tell. I am Bob the Hollow, and this is Hotfix, Devil May Cry 5. Since cutscenes don't take advantage of the unique strengths of an interactive medium, they should be used to convey that which cannot be expressed through gameplay. Deeply emotional delivery of dialogue is a prime example of that. Emotional content can still be delivered without cutscenes, for example, Limping Sith, but a line of dialogue is possibly better suited for cutscenes. The idea is for cutscenes to complement the narrative, not to hijack it. If you can do it through gameplay and or other elements of game design that would differentiate the experience from that which is found in other media, presenting the audience with a more comprehensive delivery of the story in the process, then do it. If you can't, go with cutscenes. The important thing is to remember that cutscenes aren't the only vehicle of storytelling in video games, and to choose your tools accordingly. All assets should serve the intended gaming experience. If action is the focus of the experience, then we should be able to play the action rather than being forced to watch it. By watching it instead of playing it, this asset, cutscenes, is actually detracting from the experience. Also, you should never, ever, never ever have the protagonist do something badass in the cutscene that I can't do in-game. That's very condescendingly offensive. The character I'm watching in the cutscene is not the same character I'm playing as. The character in the cutscene is a lot more badass than mine. Look at all the cool shit he can do. I wanna play that game with that character instead. For example, Nero's trigger-happy airborne acrobatics outside the van at the beginning, or Nero jumping impossible-to-reach heights, or Nero running on the walls to evade enemy fire. Just do it the Naughty Dog way and let us play through action set pieces. Please, don't make me lose a fight in a cutscene if I've beaten it, and don't make me look bad in a cutscene if I trash the boss. The MC5 is pretty tame in this regard, but it does happen in the final fight, for instance. You can have a no-damage fight with Dante against Vergil, but he will invariably sucker slice you in a cutscene. The cutscene plays it like they're on comparable levels of power, even if the fight you just had shows the exact opposite of that. The character on screen isn't my character. My character is a lot more badass than that. If you're going to use a cutscene at this moment, then have it reflect gameplay, with one favoring Dante, one favoring Vergil, and one with both on similar levels, chosen according to our performance in the fight. Nero also just wiped the floor with them. but they're still able to sucker punch him to the ground. This Nero and this Nero are not the same. The gameplay to cutscene ratio is off the charts. The first section of the game, leading to the beginning of the first mission's gameplay, for instance, should be action-packed to set the tone of the experience, but it is, instead, bogged down by lengthy cutscenes and constant interruptions to gameplay. Lengthy cutscenes aren't the only kind of cutscenes in this game either. Every time you commence a new encounter, every time you encounter a new enemy type for the first time, every time you pick up an orb shard, every time you pick up a bug key and every time you use it, every time you blow up some tree blood blister thingy. Granted, they're very short, but they add up and disrupt the pacing of the game way too much. Just exercise some restraint, man. Have Dante follow you around and teach you the ins and outs as a standing tutorial. He'd feel like a senpai, instead of you just talking about him as such. You'd be able to interact with the tutorial, as he could praise you for doing it right or for doing it before he finished explaining, or lightly berate you for doing it wrong. And he could grade your performance, replacing the stylish rank announcer for this section of the game. The cutscenes really don't do anything to show me that Dante's a badass, especially if this is your first DMC game, despite both the dialogues and his legendary title telling me otherwise. He just gets his ass handed to him, but by having him follow you around at the beginning, he'd feel like a badass if you made him whoop some ass in a major way that you just can't right now. Just spawn a bunch of late game lieutenants and have Dante kill them all after they drop your health to a certain point. That would make him look like a badass to me. He doesn't seem to give a shit about the people dying after he's left the tree, but he seems to give a little bit of a shit about the soldier he saves at the beginning of the first mission proper. And he cares enough about people to let a hobo wander in from the streets uninvited into the garage to get some free grub. Also, he demonstrates empathy all throughout the game. In theory, due to his upbringing alongside other human beings and for having believed he's a normal human being for a very long time. Despite his boastful demeanor, his goal isn't to just kill demons and get revenge. It's to defend mankind. Well, which one is it? If you've never played the DMC game, then the cutscene will first tell you that they are important supporting characters, simply because they are in the same area of the big event, and also by doing a close-up of them. Then, the game will immediately tell you that they don't really matter, because Dante doesn't ask Nero to save them, and neither Nero nor V seem to give a shit about them. They just leave them there as they're escaping and don't even mention them afterwards. So, I guess they're just random dead broads then? But then it turns out they were actually important supporting characters after all. We're also told they're badass, but they never do a goddamn thing. Not very consistent, is it? So, we're told they're important. Nico to Nero at least. Trish and the lady are important to Dante, but we're not really shown that in the game. And we're told they're badass, as per how Trish and the lady are portrayed pre-first Urizen fight. But we don't get to experience it. Heck, we don't even get to see it. Work them into the gameplay by having them help you during combat. Don't have them follow you around, as that would be intrusive and detract from the power trip stylish badass experience. Rather, MacGuffinize a way to summon them, spending health, DT or red orbs to activate a temporary portal, for instance, allowing the player the choice to use their aid or not. Also, provide instances that would specifically benefit from their intervention, such as dealing with ads during boss fights, breaking through a boss's shield, or dealing with smaller encounters without having them affect your overall stylish score for that mission, as encounters with too few ads don't provide enough opportunity for high style combos, and that reduces your mission's rating. The trade-off comes from spending resources and their impact on your rating. They would neither add nor subtract from your rating directly, but using them would reduce your ability to deal longer combos on bosses, for instance, since they'd be dying faster or simply taking damage without your direct input. Just have Nico make upgrades for them as well. A simple rescue mission would do. Nero chooses to postpone his present quest to rescue Nico, not only delaying his goals but also passing on the opportunity to kill a boss, leaving it for another playable character to kill. During this mission, Nero is deprived of his Buster Arm abilities, presenting an opportunity to showcase how much he needs her. And at the end of it, Nico shows her more fragile side that she's been hiding from him, and they share a moment of empathy without sarcasm. They have moments of empathy, but this one would feel more earnest in virtue of its sarcasm-free nature. This moment should probably be delivered via cutscene, by the way. Both the boss and the player character will animate and deliver their lines in a prescripted manner, much like it plays out in the cutscene, only without the fancy acrobatics. The player can interact with the dialogue by either shooting the boss or pressing the Provocation button, delivering a line that is specific to the dialogue at hand. Both the boss and the player character should react accordingly to how, shooting or provoking, and when, who's talking at that moment, the interaction happens. Besides being a more interesting way to deliver the story, it also provides a measure of player expression, and it can play into the general campy aesthetics of the game. The story is telling me V is getting weaker, but the mechanics show him getting stronger through upgrades to his power and to his actual health. He's also mostly health dead in cutscenes, but can jump about and literally tap dance without a problem during gameplay. Which one is it? Make up your mind. Either greatly tone down his weakness during cutscenes, or make it into a gameplay mechanic. He could be the only character with a stamina bar that would trigger a staggered state upon depletion, forcing him to use one of his familiars to shield him while he recovers. He should also be able to replenish and boost his stamina by finishing off enemies or draining temporarily weakened bosses to help avoid that state. On later missions, he could depend on his familiars to traverse the terrain between encounters and have his stamina randomly deplete on its own. I've already mentioned the frequency and length, as well as action and pre-boss banter cutscenes. Another set that is somewhat redundant in this game are the ones with V reciting from his book and just being generally angsty all the time. And I'm not questioning his aesthetics. You can make him as angst-sounding and looking as you'd like, but this aspect of the character is already expressed during gameplay in a pervasive and competent enough manner as to render this particular brand of cutscene bloating a bit unnecessary. His composed pace as he roams the battlefield, his strategic approach to combat, and his reading of poems as a manner of provocation are good enough in this front, and could even be expanded to incorporate more angst in his repertoire by using orchestral music that is more in line with his own taste. He plays the violin and conducts Rite of the Valkyries, after all, quoting appropriate poems every time a familiar is downed or summoned, instead of just quick quips, replacing the style rank announcer with these quotes, and adding powers that are specifically tuned to this aesthetic. An example of such a power would be an alternative to spending your Devil Trigger gauge to summon Nightmare, using it to trigger a global event that would stop time, such as with Ragtime's breakage. Turn off the lights and the music, turn on spotlights on downed enemies and weaker lights on non-downed enemies, as well as a spotlight that would follow V around as he strolls between enemies, quoting poems and sticking his cane in downed enemies one by one, without finishing them just yet. Once the effect ends, or is ended by the player by pressing the DT button again, time goes back to normal and all finished enemies die at the same time. The whole process could become too lengthy, so it would probably be a good idea to have him fuel a secondary DT bar before being able to perform this, like Dante's Sing form, in order to deter spamming of it that would break the pace. This power could be used as a trade-off between raw attack power and greatly increasing your style rank, and it would also allow for a unique way to end boss fights. These changes would help differentiate not just V's bit-by-bit combat style, but also his personality from the other two playable characters and reduce the need to express this aspect through cutscenes only. V's betrayal isn't just a betrayal on the characters, it's a betrayal on the player as well. He's not a companion, he's not an NPC. He's one of the main playable characters, and the player should be properly informed on the sole purpose driving all the actions of the character we're playing with, assuming the character knows that himself. The game vaguely hints at V's obscure nature, but these hints aren't indicative enough of the upcoming complete betrayal of the other characters, being the bad guy and all. When he considered the possibility of killing an unconscious Dante, for instance, not only he changes his mind on his own, giving the impression that, yeah, he's creepy but he's okay, but also he was at a very weakened state at that moment, which prevented him from wielding the Devil's Sword Sparda, and that gave me the impression he thought about killing Dante in order to drain his energy, thus strengthening himself. He is shown to absorb demons, after all. And from the player's standpoint, the betrayal is also absolute because it removes the character from the game, and the game itself works to undermine our ability to predict such possible outcome by incorporating him into all of the systems available, including but not restricted to incentivizing us to spend our shared resources on these upgrades. But since the developers clearly wanted this twist to be a part of the story, then this problem could have been mitigated with better foreshadowing. During gameplay, at scripted critical moments, they could have V perform actions without, or even against, player input. This lack of agency could instill on the player the feeling that we're not actually in control when it comes to V, that we can't trust him to share on our goals. At the core of DMC's story lies the intricacies of blood ties, the conflict of wishing for an unattainable bond, and the purging of one's past, either through regret and redemption, or revenge and self-preservation. That's good and all, but the writing doesn't really help to flesh it all out. Neither should the game be solely dependent on dialogues for the delivery of these concepts. The final boss was a good opportunity to translate these ideas into a more tangible experience. Two possibilities would be, first, to have Dante and Nero fight each other before fighting Vergil's last phase, which would showcase their commitment to how they feel about the whole situation. This possibility works better if the developers wanted to delegate agency to the player when it comes to the outcome of the story, since they could allow the player the choice of which character to play with from this point on, which would consequently determine the end of the game. But since it seems that such an agency was not a part of their artistic vision for this game, then I think a more interesting possibility would be to have a Mexican standoff. Nero would intervene in Dante and Vergil's fight, but the fight would rage on, and since Nero's objective isn't to kill them, but rather to save them, then the dynamics of the fight would have to be completely reinvented. Nero would not only have to defeat both of them, but he would also have to prevent them from killing each other. Once one of the siblings' health is depleted, let's say Dante's, then he'd enter a staggered state in which he'd be vulnerable to a death blow by Vergil, meaning Nero would have to stop Vergil from doing so. His grapple is already primed for this mechanic, as is the ability to combo stagger an enemy. And considering Nero's just gone Super Saiyan into his final form, then new mechanics could also be introduced, such as his own version of Dante's Royal Guards, blocks and parries, or a modified version of his Buster Arm abilities. Ragtime would fit in nicely in this scenario. In this stage, if Nero can't defeat Vergil before a set amount of time runs out, then Dante would Devil Trigger himself back into the fight, with some of his health restored. This, again, would better showcase their commitment to their motivations while taking advantage of our medium strengths, allowing the player to experience their struggle instead of being told about it. Going back to the point about inconsistencies, there are several other examples I could mention in regards to cutscenes, such as when you bust Vergil as Nero, he sticks it to you good, but you don't lose any health. Dante can ride Cavalier or just fly around to cover great distances, but I can't. Nero has difficulty carrying V, even though he's stronger than a jacked up bodybuilder. They shoot everything that moves, both in cutscenes and gameplay, but when V is going to merge back with his risen half, then Dante forgets to shoot and lunges at them instead. Vergil's end goal is to defeat Dante, but Urzen doesn't give two shits about him in the throne room, even though he could have easily killed Dante at that point. Family ties are given special attention by the story and the characters, except when Nero finds out Dante is his uncle, his blood relative. Nobody even makes a footnote about it. He does go on to valiantly save him in the end, but at the moment when this information is revealed to him, there's just a big old nothing from either of them. Camp and fleshiness are the two most prevalent aesthetics in DMC. Fleshiness is easy to convey through combat alone, going as far as being the core gameplay hook of the game, which in itself is reason enough to exclude the need to dedicate large amounts of cutscenes to it. When it comes to camp, the provocation mechanic is an excellent vehicle for the delivery of campy humor, and it's been nicely integrated with gameplay by having it affect your stylish rank instead of being just for show. They could even have taken it a step further by adding components such as enraging enemies, triggering transformations like the Impulsa Queen and the Hell Antenora. Dante's campy persona also shines through his combat style by using motorcycles and cowboy hats as weapons, or by emulating Bruce Lee's when attacking with nunchucks. That being said, there is a limit to how much camp one can shine through gameplay, both due to base-by-base character restrictions and because at one point it would probably just be too much, detracting from the experience instead of adding to it. So, in this particular game, this particular aspect is probably well suited enough to cutscenes to justify their usage without further restraint. In that vein, the best cutscene in the entire game is probably Dr. Faust's introductory dancing spectacle, which was apparently based on a Japanese pop star, as stated by Capcom's producer Matthew Walker. Enjoy.
I'll take that.
This isn't a review. I'm not judging the quality of the game itself, just studying its narrative and trying to find ways to improve it. And the idea isn't even to improve G's particular game, it's to improve gaming in general by improving our perspective of what video games can be. This is an infant medium that still has a long road ahead of it. Let's start taking steps together towards the future of it, shall we? So, what did you think about my suggestions? Did you like them? Hate them? Why? Do you have any suggestions of your own? Or maybe would you like to suggest other games that I could make hotfix videos about? Let me know in the comments, and thanks for watching. Thank you very much to all of my patrons, John, Vinny, Ethan, Wal, and Sinclair. If you wanna join them in helping support this channel, feel free to check out my Patreon page. The link is in the description. Well, until next time, see ya.